Local news, national news, even feel-good news. Delivering the topics that are relevant to you.
That's why I listen to Joe. He covers it all.
The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO.
Well, in the words of Jerry Garcia, what a long, strange trip this has been. Last week did not go as I had anticipated. This week has not gone as I had anticipated. It has been a long, strange trip. What a weird time. Laurel Lee, big thanks to you for pinch hitting as I was unexpectedly out. I was kind of expectedly out, but not expected to be out as long as I was, and not expected for the reason that I was.
No, but I'm glad you're back. I mean, I had fun hosting. You know, I loved our listeners. I loved having the crew with me.
Everybody says you did a great job.
Yeah, thank you. I really I appreciate that. But we're glad to have you back, too. They missed you.
Me too. It was so bizarre. So if you recall, let me kind of go back in time here. So last Thursday, I was supposed to have a spinal cord stimulator implanted in my back. It's kind of like a pacemaker. It is a piece of machinery that goes into your skin. There's no external plug or anything. And it was supposed to send a couple little leads, or little wires would go into my back, and it would send signals. It would send little jolts to my spinal cord that would keep the pain that I have in my feet and legs from getting to my brain. This is a real thing. It really works. I did the test model, and then Thursday I was supposed to have it implanted. Well, Wednesday, as fate would have it, Wednesday morning, before I was going to come into work, Wednesday morning, I had pretty much a garden variety doctor's appointment at the Advent Health Apopka Hospital building. So that hospital there in Apopka, Advent Health Apopka, doubles as both a hospital, as an ER, a hospital, and as medical offices. And my doctor is in that building. And so I went to go see my doctor in that building, and I said, it's been really weird, but in the last week or so, I've been having these heart palpitations. And I thought maybe it's just nerves or something heading into getting the spinal cord stimulator implanted or something like that. And the doctor took his stethoscope out, as doctors do, and he took a listen to my heart, and he says, well, you do have a murmur, which I've known. I've had a murmur for years. That's not anything uncommon. And he said, let's go ahead and do and forgive me, I always get these mixed up, a sonogram, or is that when they put the jelly on your skin, like if you're pregnant? Is that called a sonogram? Ultrasound? So I had an that sounds more like it. Either way, they did some sort of scan of my heart to rule it out, to make sure that wasn't it, whether it was an ultrasound or whatever. And they did this ultrasound, and literally they're halfway through the ultrasound, and the technician gets up and walks out for a minute. And I'm not a child. I know what that means when the technician gets up and walks out in the middle of the session. That means she's going to get the doctor because she's got to show the doctor something. And she did. She got up and she came back with the doctor, and they stopped the echocardiogram. That's what it's called, echocardiogram. They stopped the echocardiogram before they finished it, because they knew what the issue was. And they said, this is not your heart. I said, what is it? They said, it's your lungs. There's something wrong with your lungs. And that's why you're having palpitations. That's why you can feel your heartbeat right now, because there's something wrong with your lungs, and it's pushing up on your heart. And so they took me into the emergency room. Which is, having the emergency room right there in the same hospital at Advent Health Apopka was awfully convenient to be able to walk down to the emergency room, where they did an X-ray and a CT scan, and they were able to determine with the X-ray and especially the CT scan that I had fluid buildup in my lungs. They call that a pulmonary edema. So I often think of, when you got liquid fluid in your lungs, that's like pneumonia. That's when the fluid penetrates the little, what are those little sacs in your lungs called? I always get those mixed up with the female body part name, and I don't want to say it. I did so good in public high school biology class. So pneumonia is when those little sacs get filled with liquid. But a pulmonary edema is generally when the outside of your lungs, the sac that holds your lungs in, when that gets filled full of fluid. So they found that I had fluid on my lungs, particularly my left lung. And I don't know if you know how they drain that fluid. If you've ever seen a cow that suffers from bloat, it's the same thing. So they stick a needle in through my lower back. It's actually my mid back, I would say, just below where my ribs are. But they stuck a needle in my back as I kind of hunched over, and they start draining the fluid. And I can, it's behind me, right? Because the needle's in my back, and I can hear the fluid draining. I can just hear the drip, drizzle, drizzle, drip, drizzle, drizzle of my back draining. But Laurel and Paul, you guys are both giving me the same face. It's gross, right? And for anybody who doesn't know, if you don't follow me on Facebook, I posted this on Facebook, including the fluid that they had drained out of my back. This is the remarkable part. They drained almost 2 liters. So if you think of a 2-liter bottle of Coke, right? So that means that I have been carrying around almost a 2-liter bottle of Coke in fluid around my lungs for heaven knows how long. I didn't feel sick. I wasn't sick. I didn't go to the doctor because I felt sick. I just wanted to make sure that any kind of heart palpitations I was feeling was going to be normal or certainly not problematic for the following day's surgery.
You are a medical anomaly.
I really am. I really am. And there was the longest time where I thought myself to be sickly and frail. And I used to be really down on myself. And I would think every time I would get admitted to the hospital, oh, this is it. Here we go. This is it. And I've had a great change of attitude for a variety of reasons. One of which I just came to an epiphany that somehow, some way, even though I've gone through various forms of cancer, I'm still alive. And it occurred to me that, you know what, maybe I'm not sickly. Maybe I'm kind of a badass. You know, maybe I'm kind of tough and I can fight off all these things. And honestly, I can't tell you how many times that I have been told, Mr. Kelley, you should probably get your affairs in order. I have been told that at least a half a dozen times.
My wife tells me that every week.
As she should. We should tell you the same. But after they drained that fluid, I didn't have, like I said, I didn't have any symptoms before I went to the hospital. I didn't feel bad. I didn't feel sick. I didn't have any kind of pain, any extraordinary pain. But after they drained the fluid from my lungs, everything hurt. It hurt to breathe. It hurt to walk. It hurt to move. It hurt. Everything hurt. So they removed all that fluid on Thursday. They ultimately discharged me late Friday, and then I spent the weekend recuperating at home. I didn't feel well enough to get up and get going for Father's Day. So I didn't do anything with my kids on Father's Day because I didn't have the strength to get out of bed and much more than just to get up and go to the bathroom. And suddenly today when I woke up, I felt great. And I was like, this is totally it. I plan on coming back to work today, and I felt good today as I woke up, and this is thrilling. I got to tell you though, and there have been periods in my life in which I have been paid to speak about them on the radio, and that's Advent Health. I am not currently, nor have I been paid by them in a few years. So I hope you feel that I'm able to speak objectively about Advent Health. And I can't speak to all of their facilities, but Advent Health Apopka, man, if you get sick, if you're feeling bad, if you injure yourself and you're anywhere near the vicinity of Advent Health Apopka, from the very first person I interacted with, getting into the ER, and there was a hostile dude in the ER when I was there. He was drunk, and it was pretty early in the day. It was 10 a.m. or so, and this guy was drunk out of his mind at 10 a.m., cursing at everybody, and I got to hear the Advent Health nurses and staff work with the guy, and the police showed up, and it was quite a scene, and it delayed some of the rest of us from getting the health care that we needed. But they certainly had their hands full. I got to tell you, everybody at that hospital, whether they were the nutrition department or housekeeping department or nurses department or the labs department, the x-ray department, every single person was exceptional. I don't think ever in my life have I had a hospital visit that was that exceptional. Even as I spent the night, I think it was 2 nights, maybe 3 nights that I spent the night there. A lot of times during a 24-hour shift, you're going to get a bad nurse or what you feel like is a bad nurse, a nurse that you don't gel with real well, or you're just waiting for that nurse to go away so I can, have the next nurse on shift. Every nurse was exceptional. Every single one, daytime, nighttime, it doesn't matter. I got to say, I love to be able to talk about when a business does something right, and Advent Health Apopka just absolutely nailed it. And I was thrilled with them. And when it came to getting discharged, sometimes a hospital wants to keep you around a little bit too long, and I'm like, you know what? I want to be discharged. And I've left what's called LAMA before. That's leaving against medical advice. That's an acronym, leaving against medical advice. Sometimes I have grown so impatient with emergency rooms, with hospitals, that I will just, I hate to say it, but I have ripped out an IV out of my arm and walked out because I didn't find their care to be acceptable. Oftentimes, of course, when you're in that scenario, you're not of the calmest mind in the first place anyway, so you might not be in the right mind when you're making those kinds of decisions. So I don't condone my bad behavior of leaving LAMA. It's generally not advised. But, if a hospital's taken too long to discharge you, that's one of the things you could consider. I mean, I thought that the Apopka Health, Advent Health Apopka Hospital, waited the just amount of time. They were like, okay, you're caught up, you're healthy, you're doing better, you're breathing well, and they discharged me, and that was absolutely perfect. And even out to the very last person, the transportation expert, the porter who wheeled me out to my car, and carried my backpack so that I didn't have to carry him. And I mean, it was just a really, for a place I didn't want to be, man, did I not want to be there. It was a really exceptional experience. So kudos to the nurses, to the doctors, to the staff. There was a guy, William, who was on the transportation team. And William was this good-looking young guy, and he pushes around gurneys and wheelchairs all day. And William was this real good-looking young kid. He was, I say kid, he was probably 22, 24 years old. But he was wearing sunglasses. And I'm like, oh, are you too cool to be, pushing gurneys around, that kind of thing? And he was real quick to explain. He said, please excuse that I'm wearing sunglasses. He goes, he said he was having problems with his eyes. And honestly, I don't remember the specificity of it, but he did explain it. And then he said, can I pray with you? And, Advent Health is supposed to be a nonprofit hospital. Advent Health is owned and operated, managed by ostensibly, why can't I think of it now? The religion, Seventh-day Adventists. That's where Advent Health gets its name. And so when you go into Advent Health, I mean, it is a religious hospital, and you'll see you'll see biblical quotes, scripture quotes on the walls, which for someone like me who is a Christian, makes me feel infinitely better. I love seeing that. And but even William, the cool transportation dude with the sunglasses, was like, do you mind if I pray for you? And I'm like, oh my gosh, no, I would, how odd. Yes. No. Yeah. I mean, yes, please. By all means, pray for me, pray with me. I mean, it was really, really welcome. It was a welcome hospital experience for all that it was. Now, here's the bad part. I never got, I had to cancel the spinal cord implant. So I was so angry. That was the only thing I was angry about. I wasn't angry about being hospitalized or angry about being, having liquids in my lungs or whatever. I was like, damn it, though. I missed my window to get the spinal cord stimulator. And so I'm calling the surgical center where I'm supposed to have that done. It's not even the same hospital. And I have to cancel and reschedule the appointment. You want to know when they rescheduled it for, Laurel? So it was supposed to be done on June 15th, which was last Thursday. Would you care to guess when it's rescheduled for?
Not for months.
August.
Is it a year involved?
August 17th now.
Oh.
August 17th.
So you have to be in pain for like a month plus.
That's the thing. That is the thing that drives me absolutely batty, particularly in that they gave me a temporary spinal cord stimulator to see if it works. And it does. Oh, my gosh, it works. And it was the first time in 20 years that I have been out of pain, that I have not had this chronic pain in my legs and feet. And so now August 17th is the nearest day. And now, because of that little glitch and with the hospitalization ahead of it, now I've got to be cleared for the procedure by both a cardiologist and a pulmonologist, so a heart and a lung doctor. So now I even wonder if I will ever get a spinal cord stimulator. So that is just a real bummer, because I have to resort to self-medicating or fists full of Tylenol or stuff like that to be able to help. And hit a little Jack Daniels, something like that, to help take the pain out and get the sleep away, and we're good to go. That's not how one wants to live life, I will tell you that. My name is Joe Kelley, 844-580-WDBO. It's 844-580-9326. You can use the open mic and the WDBO app.
This is WDBO 107.3 FM and AM 580, Orlando's news and talk.
We've got another round of showers that is coming our way, by the way. If you're in the Mascot area, if you're in the Groveland area, you're going to see some shower activity coming your way. I thought that last big, heavy band of storms that is still making its way through Palm Bay and Yeehaw Junction right now, I thought that was going to be the last for the night. It is not. We've got another one coming. And at this point, it's probably a good 30 minutes away. And at this point, how many times do you think this, like Laurel, right? You look at the radar and you're like, I wonder if that's going to be cleared by 7 o'clock when we have to go outside again.
Always.
Right? Because right now I'm thinking, all right, good. Where's my umbrella? Yep, it's in my car. My umbrella is in my car. Why wouldn't my umbrella be in my car? Why? Because that's always where I leave my umbrella on days in which I know it is going to rain. It is very, very frustrating.
Joe, you are blessed. That is what it is.
Yeah.
God has more plans for you.
That was also part of my epiphanies, that God has something in store for me. I'm being saved for something, and I just don't know yet what it is. But there is obviously a purpose here for me. But I have not yet found it. At least I don't think so.
Hey Joe, I agree about Advent Health. Yours is a Popka, mine is a Celebration. A wonderful, wonderful hospital.
Man, I'm glad to hear that. I am so glad to hear that. I mean, there have been times, like I said, in which I have, walked out of hospitals. I remember sometime this would have been a couple decades ago, but I was in the. I remember yelling at nurses, but I remember I had like 103 fever. When you've got a big fever. Sometimes you behave in manners that aren't typically yourself, and yelling at people is generally not my MO. And so when I did start yelling at people at the hospital, even I'd been there for a couple of weeks, it was unusual for them to see me in that manner, because I just generally don't behave that way. Zach is checking in from Oviedo. Zach, I've only got a few seconds here, but you wanted to talk about that submersible. Hi, Zach. How are you?
Yeah. First of all, I'm glad you're okay.
Thank you.
Aren't you like 6'10"?
6'2", yes.
You're 6'2".
Yes.
Okay, so I'm 5'10". But yeah, Advent Health, it's the way to go.
No doubt.
I mean, I had at different hospitals. I had a nurse. Her last name is literally kaput. I left that hospital. But anyway, the submersible, it's not good.
Yeah, I hate to say it, Zach, and I don't know if others are saying it because I've really not been listening to media or anything, but there is no way that those 5 people are coming back alive. There is absolutely no way that they will be recovered alive. It cannot happen. It will not happen. If they're not dead already, they will be dead very, very soon. And we, humanity, do not have the means for rescuing people off of the bottom of the ocean at 16,000 feet depth. I'm Joe Kelley. You can join me at 844-580-WDBO.
This is WDBO 107.3 FM and AM 580, Orlando's news and talk. News, weather, traffic, all the things you want on your drive home. Plus, Joe Kelley being, well, Joe Kelley. Now, the Joe Kelley Show on Orlando's News and Talk, WDBO.
Oh, and I forgot to tell you, so obviously the question comes in, how did I have fluid around my lungs? Where did that come from? Is it leaking from somewhere else in my body, or is a part of my body producing that fluid? How did I get nearly 2 liters of fluid around my lungs, especially my left lung? And while we don't have a definitive answer on that yet, they ruled out, evidently when you do the pathology on the fluid that you remove, and it was gross. I mean, it was gross. But with the pathology, you can rule out like any kind of coronary issues, and you can rule out, some cancer issues and a bunch of other stuff, which evidently we have. So there's a kind of a lingering question of where did the fluid come from? And one of the things that can cause a pulmonary edema, fluid on your lungs, is travel to high altitude areas. What? If you'll recall, my wife and I had our mystery vacation to Denver in March, and that coincidentally or not, was also the last time I had visited an emergency room. Because when I was in Denver in March, I got to the point where I was really struggling to breathe. And so I went to the ER in Denver. They said that you're kind of in the beginning stages of pneumonia. And they, gave me some inhalers and some other stuff for that and some antibiotics, and I was on my way. But ever since pretty much Denver, I've had this cough, just this little dry, annoying cough. And that evidently was the symptom that I was ignoring. I didn't know that my little tiny cough could be indicative of something, and evidently it was indicative of me having a pulmonary edema or fluid on my lungs. Do you know what it's called when they drain the fluid of your lung, Laurel? I'm gonna put you on the spot here.
It's called yucky.
Yeah, it was totally gross. A pleural effusion. So a pleural, spelled differently than the word that describes multiple things, spelled slightly differently. But I had a pleural effusion, and that was what drained out all of the yucky fluid, which looked kind of a combination between beer and urine. I mean, that was about the color of it, if I'm being honest, and it was kind of gross. But that's it. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Pleural effusion. Chris, I don't think that's spelled right. We're looking at in the chat here. Michael says a smoker's cough. Yeah, except I don't smoke. I haven't smoked. Yeah, nope. Blah, blah, blah. I'm sorry. I'm reading some of the comments. Joe, do you get delusional with morphine? Don't we all get delusional with morphine? Don't we all, when you have morphine, you're like, oh, okay, hang on just a second. Oh, I'm going to get past this. Because they would give you morphine like right before you go do a CT exam or something, so that when you're being jostled about, things won't hurt as much. And so they want to give you this morphine shot. And boy, I tell you, that just makes you high as a kite, and it is instantaneous. You go from not being high as a kite to, oh my gosh, I've got to ride this out for a
the
second.
whole Alice in Wonderland thing.
Oh, it totally is. And they're like, okay, why don't you go ahead and get into the wheelchair now? And I'm like, no, hang on. Daddy's not going.
I'll just fly to my car.
Daddy's not going anywhere until this wave is over. Y'all are just going to have to sit and wait while I enjoy this, because this is the only fun I'm having here at the hospital. Is the morphine push. So just chill out, everybody. And then, of course, that backs you up, and then that leads to a whole bunch of other problems. I will say that the food was not as good as I would have hoped for hospital food, but that would be probably my only complaint. And it's not so much a complaint as it is just an observation, because these days you can get food delivered, even to hospitals. You can get DoorDash, you can get whatever delivered to your hospital. And if you're not on food restrictions, you can get whatever you want. So I'm like ordering pizza because I'm not on food restrictions. So I just ordered whatever I wanted, and Ronnie brought me some food, and so it was all good. I know, Laurel, that you've been covering this submersible disaster since it started. And when did that story kind of break?
It was this weekend because Sunday morning is when they went down to go see it, and it was about an hour and 45 minutes after they went down Sunday morning where they lost contact. So it was Sunday it started growing.
Do you think it's fair to say that most people are unaware that there were tourist trips available to the Titanic?
Oh, absolutely, particularly because the price tag was $250,000.
Yeah.
So I doubt normal people had that on their radar as a thing to do.
Right, hardly on my bucket list of things to do. And honestly, this kind of started back in the James Cameron era. I mean, James Cameron was the first person with modern technology to go down to the Titanic and to video record it, to put it on film. James Cameron is so much more than just a film producer and a film writer. He is truly a bit of an explorer, and especially underwater explorer. He in the making of the Titanic, I think, was kind of a footnote, if you will, to him exploring the Titanic. I mean, he was exploring the Titanic no matter what. And the shots that are used of the underwater Titanic in the film Titanic were filmed by James Cameron with a submersible down at the wreckage site. So James Cameron had a big deal to do with what eventually became tourist trips down to the Titanic wreckage site. As we check our triple team traffic now with PC, Paul Cross. How is our drive shaping up, Paul?
Well, Joe, we do have a crash in Osceola County. It's I-4 eastbound, and the exit ramp to 192 is closed. You're going to need to take Osceola Parkway or 536 instead. And also brake lights I-4 westbound through Lake Mary and from Parr onto the 408. And then I-4 eastbound also heavy through downtown. From the WDBO Triple Team Traffic Center, I'm Paul Cross.
Now, I have already seen a lot of people that are bent out of shape about the rescue efforts for these people stuck down on the bottom of the ocean since this weekend near or on the Titanic. I've seen people saying, "Why? These are billionaires. They knew the risks. Let's not spend any more money, trying to rescue billionaires from the bottom of the ocean when they knew the risks." I am not a fan of that attitude. I do understand that they knew the risks. They have to sign a disclaimer form that is ludicrous. I mean, it mentions death multiple times in the disclaimer. It's almost satirical, the disclaimer that they have to sign. But I will never be an advocate of leaving people to die without making any effort whatsoever. And I feel the same about the opposite atmosphere. So the bottom of the ocean is one atmosphere. The highest peak is another atmosphere, and that is Mount Everest. I believe rescues should be attempted unless and until the point at which they put other people's lives in jeopardy. And look, the people that are stuck at the bottom of the ocean, they're not getting out. Because the company that sent them down there, Ocean Gate Expeditions, didn't have a backup plan. They don't have a rescue ship. There is, I hate to say this, but those 5 people are never going to be seen again. They will not be rescued. They may already be dead. The clanking sound that the French claim that they heard could easily be materials from the Titanic that are clanking together. There's a pretty good current underwater there, and as the current goes around the Titanic, there are all kinds of loose pieces of metal that ebb and flow in the current, and those could easily be things that are clanging together. The greater likelihood is that all 5 died instantaneously when it had a instantaneous implosion, and it just absolutely was squozen like a bug, and nobody on the inside had the slightest idea something bad was about to happen. It's reminiscent again of some of our rocket launches that went poorly, and people are not likely to have lived very long after they started to be in trouble. And in this case, odds are very, very good that they're all dead. And either way, odds are next to zero that they're ever going to be rescued from the bottom of the ocean. Doesn't mean they shouldn't try. Doesn't mean they shouldn't make an effort to. But and Laurel, was it this time tomorrow, roughly, that they expect to be out of oxygen?
Yeah, they have about less than 30 hours left at this point. So, yeah, about this time.
You know, and at some point you have to decide, so is that going to be part of the tour now where the other people died and you go down and see that as well? There are plenty of underwater tour companies, all of which recently wrote a letter to the operators of this particular expedition, Ocean Gate Expeditions, telling them in a joint letter of all these underwater exploration experts that their business was on shaky ground, that their vehicle was not rated for the depths that they were going, and evidently it wasn't rated for the depths that they were going. I mean, it sounds like a real shoddy outfit. A really kind of a slapping together. The device used to control the submersible from inside the submersible is literally a Game Boy controller or a Game Station controller. It's a video game controller. I mean, that's what they used. I mean, they were using spare parts from Home Depot to make their submersible. I mean, they were just taking stuff off the shelf and building this thing that's supposed to withstand the insane pressure at 16,000 feet underwater. The pressure at 16,000 feet underwater is far greater than the lack of pressure at 29,000 feet above water, which is where Mount Everest is. 844-580-WDBO. It's 844-580-9326. You can use the open mic and the WDBO app. Do you think that they should continue their rescue efforts? Do you think that they should stop tourism to the Titanic for fear of how dangerous it is? 844-580-WDBO or use the open mic and the WDBO app.
The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO. The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO. Connected to our community. Talk local issues and events with Joe Kelley. Use the open mic in the WDBO app and let Joe know what interests you. The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO.
By the way, I gave the wrong depth of where the Titanic sits. I said it was 16,000. It's 12,500 feet underwater. That's about 2 1/3 miles underwater. And I can tell you, as a licensed scuba diver, for anybody who has a basic open water scuba diving license, that is up to 100 feet. 100 feet. The Titanic is at 12,500 feet. James is joining us in Deltona. Hey, James, you're on WDBO.
Hey, glad to hear you back on the radio. We missed you.
Thanks, buddy.
The sub, we got to keep searching for those guys. You know, families are, they're kicking in a lot of dimes. They don't want to lose their family members, and they're explorers, going to the outer depths. It'd be the same if we were sending somebody up to the moon and we lost track of them, we're going to send whatever we can to get there. Luckily, we have assets here on Earth to go find these explorers and try to get them.
We do have assets. Whether or not we can deploy the assets fast enough is yet to be determined. And to be able to get to that depth, I mean, there are not a lot of vehicles that can get to that depth in the ocean. But ultimately, time will tell, James, as to whether or not those are going to be able to get down there in time.
Hey, this is Kevin from Apopka. Those people on the submarine, if they're sitting on the bottom of the ocean floor with no power, they probably died of hypothermia a couple days ago. I agree with you. I don't think there's any chance of them ever being brought back alive. I hope there is, but I really don't think there is.
Yeah, regrettably, I agree.
$250,000 to go down in a vessel the size of a Volkswagen Beetle where you had to sign away that you could die. No, thank you.
Yeah, I think a lot of us are going to feel the same way.
It was my understanding that the Russians have been doing tours down there to the Titanic for quite a while. There was a lot of controversy about it not too long ago because some of these foreign tourist companies were landing the submersibles actually on the wreckage and doing damage to the wreckage, if that's a thing. But yeah, this is actually, from my understanding, these tours aren't actually all that uncommon. It's been done before, but as you said, this was one shoddy operation.
Yeah, think of it as that amusement ride at Icon Park that got taken down after killing someone. Definitely, after these 5 people are declared dead, their families are going to own this tourist company. Whether or not they'll ever operate again is yet to be determined, though. We'll continue.
The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO. Now, WDBO 107.3 FM and AM 580. Triple Team Traffic.
That crash in Osceola County is actually on 192 near I-4, but it has the I-4 eastbound exit ramp to 192 shut down. So you're going to have to take Osceola Parkway or 536 instead. This report sponsored by Fresh from Florida. Shoppers, your local farmers are letting you know that Florida watermelon is in season right now. Learn more at followfreshfromflorida.com. From the Florida Department of Agriculture. From the WDBO Triple Team Traffic Center, I'm Paul Cross.
This is WDBO 107.3 FM and AM 580. Orlando's news and talk. Insightful.
You tell the truth from your point of view.
Entertaining.
Man, that guy is a lot taller than he sounds on the radio.
And engaging.
When we hear you on the radio, it's a good thing.
The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO.
Yeah, my only rule for saving other people is you can't risk your life in order to save other people. All right, because the 5 people that are down there by the Titanics, their lives are not worth more than anybody else's life to go down and rescue them. So as long as it is viable that they're still alive, and as long as nobody else is putting their life in danger, I totally support trying to save those people that are down by the Titanic. Now, the reality is they're probably dead and they'll never be seen again, period. The probably dead part is perhaps still debatable. The part that they'll never be seen ever again is not debatable. They're not going to be rescued. It's unlikely they'll even be recovered from the bottom of the ocean, but particularly not rescued.
You know, Joe, you're absolutely 100% correct, and this is why there are still bodies on top of Everest.
Oh, yeah.
You can't rescue somebody
absolutely
and take
right.
lives into risk to do it. They know the danger. It is what it is.
And if there is a way to rescue somebody in Everest, there was a remarkable rescue that the likes of which has never been seen before on Mount Everest this climbing season, and that is a Sherpa that was on his way up with 2 paying clients. A Sherpa convinced his 2 paying clients that we need to turn around, and these are 2 paying clients that for years have been training to climb Mount Everest, for years have been spending $60,000, $65,000, $70,000 a person to make it to Mount Everest. And as they're making their way up, this Sherpa encounters a man who's nearly dead, who was on his way down. And the Sherpa puts the guy in a sleeping bag and literally straps him to his back and carries the dude like a backpack down the mountain. That's never been done before, because more times than not, if someone is immobilized at the top of Mount Everest, they are simply left where they are. And they die there, and they become a landmark. And as callous as that sounds, they become a landmark there on top of Mount Everest.
I don't understand how people could be that interested in what the Titanic looks like, seeing it in person, signing a waiver to risk your life, pretty much to just commit suicide, to go down 16,000 feet.
You know, we all have our sweet spots, don't we? Because I know that there are plenty of people who enjoy jumping out of airplanes and going skydiving, going parachuting. To me, that sounds insane. Similarly, there are others who love to go bungee jumping. Nope, I've been bungee jumping before, have no desire to do that again. I mean, there are all kinds of risks that we take in life. Sometimes just getting in your car and driving to work is a risk. Sometimes driving through storms is a risk. There's a risk drawing a bath and getting into the bathtub. There's a risk you're going to slip and fall. I mean, there are all kinds of risks that we deal with, and each person gets to decide whether or not that is worth the risk. And I think most of us would not choose the risk of going down to the Titanic, particularly when it's $250,000 to do so.
Hey, Joe. The Titanic is a grave. I think we need to stay away from it, leave it alone.
You know, it's kind of like the USS Arizona. You know, when the Arizona sank at Pearl Harbor during the beginnings of World War II for the United States after Japan's attack on Pearl Harbor, when the Arizona sank, we did not recover the bodies of the sailors from the Arizona. We left them where they were. And the Arizona is a memorial to this day to the sailors who died during the events of Pearl Harbor. And that is why when any of the Arizona survivors pass away this day, now, there is an official scuba diver with the National Park Service that will take the remains of an Arizona survivor who has since died. They will take the remains back down to the Arizona so that they can be with their shipmates and spend perpetuity together inside the Arizona. Likewise, no bodies were recovered from the Titanic. Now, that wasn't military. It wasn't an act of war. It was an act of hubris. It was an act of hubris. It was an act of lousy engineering, of mixing steel the wrong ways. It was an act of not having sonar to be able to alert the ship that there were icebergs, dead ahead, icebergs. So there was all kinds of problems with the Titanic. But it is a grave. And this is what's remarkable. So at least 1,500 people died on the Titanic. Well, now you can add 5 more. 5 more people have now died on the Titanic. Who would have thought that since 1912 when it sank to 2023, the number of people who died on the Titanic has gone up by 5. It's really quite remarkable.
Can you imagine the irony if that mini submersible got caught up on the wreckage of the Titanic?
You know, there are some experts who are speculating that that's exactly what happened. They're saying that it is possible that the submersible either got tangled up in something on the Titanic or somehow collided with it and ruptured because of the Titanic, but it is entirely possible. And not until they send an ROV, remote operated vehicle, they'll send down a little tiny ROV. There are plenty of ROVs that can go to 12,000 feet, but a manned vessel, there aren't a whole lot of those. But the Navy, U.S. Navy, and pretty much every first world Navy has ROVs that can go down that deep. But having manned vehicles is a lot less than that. All right, 844-580-WDBO. It's 844-580-9326. You can use the open mic in the WDBO app.
You're right on those dive limits. So it's 60 feet actually for basic open water is the recommended depth. 100 feet for advanced open water. And then, you can get down to 120 on regular air, maybe 130 tops. After that, you risk severe nitrogen narcosis. I've been down as far as 250 before, but that's nowhere near where these people have been. That's obviously on a tri-gas mix.
Yeah, I think the deepest I've ever been is about 95 feet, and that was by accident. I didn't mean to go that deep, and I as quickly as I could, I rectified that and went up a little bit more shallow.
Hey, this is James in Deltona. You cannot compare a thrill ride to an exploration. That is pathetic. I mean, I'm surprised Space Mountain isn't shut down.
You know, that is interesting because, yes, there was somebody who said, they were doing space exploration. Well, that would have been the same as if William Shatner would have died when he went up on the Blue Horizon. The Blue Horizon is not about space exploration. SpaceX, while it is a private company and while you can pay SpaceX to go up in outer space, SpaceX is at least involved in space exploration and building Mars vehicles and building the lunar vehicles. Blue Horizon is not involved in exploration. It is. You're absolutely right, James. It is a thrill ride for space, and that's all it is. And I can understand dying during an act of exploration, but dying on a thrill ride is not something that that I could justify.
I disagree with you a lot on a lot of things. Glad to hear that you're back. Glad to hear you're healthy. Keep pushing forward, my man.
Well, thank you, man. That is about the nicest thing anybody can say. And I bet I disagree with you on many things, but I'm glad you're there. And I'm glad you're listening, and I really appreciate that. Can we talk about gas stoves for a minute? You want to talk about gas stoves? So it's so interesting how the Biden administration starts off this thing about how gas stoves are bad and how they want to get rid of gas stoves. And then the Biden administration totally walks it back and says, "Oh no, it's not what we didn't mean that." You know, Joe Biden walks it back. "Oh no, we're not coming after your gas stoves." And then you hear little rumblings that the EPA is now looking into gas stoves. Well, now there's a study out, and you cannot tell me that this study is not in some way, shape, or form linked directly to the Biden White House to try to prepare the American people for the eventual disposal of our gas stovetops. Out of Stanford, California, which again, Stanford University in California, and Stanford, California is going to be one of the more liberal areas. But according to a report out of Stanford University, whenever you light a gas stove, your chances for blood cancer could be going up. As researchers at Stanford University say that gas stoves release benzene. It is a chemical that is linked to increased risks of leukemia and other blood cancers. They found that a single gas stovetop burner or oven set at 350 degrees Fahrenheit can raise indoor levels of that chemical more than secondhand smoke. Benzene can even stick around for hours, traveling all throughout the home. The senior study author, Rob Jackson, says that benzene forms in flames in other high-temperature environments, such as the flares found in oil fields and refineries. We know that benzene also forms in the flames of gas stoves in our homes. You know, I just talked to a man today, a gentleman named Andrew. In fact, I was talking to Andrew because of his daughter. She's one of our Make-A-Wish kids that we're going to feature in the Wish-a-thon coming up here in just a few months. But as I was interviewing them, the dad said to me that he was around the burn pits in Iraq and that he himself has lung disease from being around the burn pits in Iraq. And I know that benzene is only one of the many chemicals that came off of the burn pits in Iraq. I mean, the burn pits in Iraq is this generation's Agent Orange, as we've got a lot of veterans that are sick from this and trying to find justice and trying to find health care, and all of that is proving to be difficult because our bloated and inept federal U.S. government. This research team found that concentrations of benzene measured in bedrooms, which are typically further away from the kitchen, measured higher than national and international health benchmarks. It's even more worrisome that range hoods and exhaust fans don't seem to lower the concentrations consistently. This paper is the first to analyze benzene emissions when a gas stove or oven is in use. Oh, this is the first study of benzene. Oh, I wonder why there have not been studies in the past. Why did we never look at this previously? Why are we suddenly now looking at gas ranges and gas stovetops? This is the first paper to study this. Previously, studies have analyzed leaks from stoves when they're off and didn't actually measure benzene concentrations. Another study from Stanford also found that gas-burning stoves inside U.S. homes leak methane and expose users to pollutants like nitrogen dioxide, which can trigger respiratory problems. A 2013 meta-analysis found that children who live in homes with gas stoves have a 42% greater risk of having asthma than children who didn't. So they're clearly trying to prepare the American people to hate their gas stoves. They're going to do anything that they can to convince you that you don't need a gas stove. I will tell you, I enjoy cooking, and nothing cooks better than gas, period. I've got an electric stove now. I do not have a gas range. I have an electric stove now. Hate it. Absolutely hate it. And would absolutely love to have a gas range back. But do these kinds of surveys, do these kinds of studies give you pause at all? Is there a part of you that says, maybe we should get rid of the gas ranges. Maybe I should be cooking on electric. Oh, hell, just microwave everything. We don't even need electric ranges. What do you think? 844-580-WDBO. It's 844-580-9326. You can use the open mic and the WDBO app. Survey says that you and I are likely to get leukemia because of the gas stove in our house. So should we get rid of the gas ranges in our houses? This is just the latest reason they have given us for why we should not have gas ranges. 844-580-WDBO or use the open mic and the WDBO app.
The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO. The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO. Breaking news to lively debates, covering the issues that matter to you.
I make it a point to listen to Joe Kelley when I need to fully understand what's happening in the news.
Now, The Joe Kelley Show on Orlando's News and Talk, WDBO.
844-580-WDBO. It's 844-580-9326. You can use the open mic in the WDBO app. If you're just joining us, we're talking about the submersible that is sitting in the bottom of the ocean along with a Titanic 2 miles or so deep at this hour. And we're also talking about a new study from Stanford University that says if you have a gas range in your home, you have an increased risk for leukemia and other blood cancers because of the benzene that comes out of the fuel in your home range. It is interesting how the government is preparing us for the ultimate demise of our gas ovens and stoves. You can hit me up right now at 844-580-WDBO, 844-580-9326. You can use the open mic in the WDBO app. Let's take a listen here.
So what are all the scientists who sit in front of Bunsen burners supposed to do? They're in front of them all day. We get rid of those and put a little electric hot pots in front of them?
Yeah, that sounds about right, yes.
If they can ban the gas stove because of benzene, then why can't they just go ahead and ban cigarettes? They already know all the health risks of that. So what's the difference?
Yeah, benzene is one of the ingredients in most cigarettes. That's just one of the hundreds of ingredients in most cigarettes, and yet people are still allowed to legally smoke cigarettes. Isn't that something? If they're going to ban gas ranges, but we're still allowed to go out and smoke a cigarette.
Joe, I don't think I'll ever get rid of my gas stove. I love my gas stove, the top and the oven, and I've had it for over 10 years, and I will never get rid of it.
That guy's got the same energy as Charlton Heston. You can have my gas stove when you pry it out of my cold, dead fingers.
Joe, I lived in Chicago for 52 years before moving to Florida and grew up with a gas stove. My children grew up with a gas stove, and we are perfectly fine. Nobody has respiratory problems or anything. Heck, we even drink out of the garden hose, which they say is going to cause some amoeba or cancer or something else. These people need to get a life and realize what it's like to live back in the day like we did.
All right, everybody pause for just a second and clear your minds. Clear your minds for just a second and go back in time and taste the water coming out of the garden hose. You can taste it still, can't you? Mm-hmm. That does have a unique taste. That hits a little bit differently than water out of the refrigerator, doesn't it? I remember it like it was yesterday.
Joe, you should also look into candles. The amount of candles that people burn in their home are literally killing them slowly.
So I would like to say that guy has no idea what he's talking about, but he's absolutely right. Candles do put off a number of potentially hazardous chemicals such as formaldehyde and a number of others, and it is, frankly, bad for your health. Particularly if you inhale any of that black smoke coming off of your candle, I mean, that is very, very bad for your health.
Hey, listen, I'm with you. I grew up in Massachusetts, grew up on Cape Cod. Gas is, I don't know, it feels natural. It cooks faster, no heating. It's phenomenal. I don't understand. I moved to Florida, I cook on electric, and I'm miserable. But I made it work.
Yeah, I hate cooking on electric. I really do. If you love to cook, then I'm certain that you love to cook on gas and not on electric. Electric takes too long to heat up. It takes too long to cool down. It's too difficult to get it to be the exact right temperature you need it. It's too difficult to keep it at the exact right temperature you need it. Gas just has so many cooking advantages over electric, to be sure. 844-580-WDBO. My name is Joe Kelley. We'll continue with more of your calls and comments coming up next.
This is WDBO 107.3 FM and AM 580, Orlando's news and talk. Orange, Seminole, Osceola, and all of Central Florida. Join the conversation now by using the open mic in the WDBO app. Now, the Joe Kelley Show on Orlando's news and talk, WDBO.
All right, on a scale of 1 to 10, and Laurel, I'm going to let you be my guinea pig here, if I may. On a scale of 1 to 10, what is your level of concern about microplastics?
10 being the most, I'm like terribly concerned, and 1 being I've never even heard of it.
Yes.
3.
So it's pretty low on your level of concern, microplastics.
Yeah, overall in my life, pretty low, yeah.
You know, I would actually put microplastics much higher up there, certainly higher than gas stoves. I've got a greater concern about microplastics than I do about gas stoves. According to a new study published in June, humans are likely inhaling 16.2 bits of plastic every hour. Inhaling microplastics every hour. You're inhaling enough microplastics every hour to make a credit card every week. Can you imagine you open your mouth? Hang on, I got to get this credit card out of my mouth. But you're swallowing, you're inhaling a credit card a week in microplastics. Now, if you don't know what microplastics are, well, they're tiny pieces of plastic, less than 5 millimeters, and they're typically generated from the degradation of plastic products, tires, and industrial breakdown. So if you've got, a plastic water bottle and you've had that forever and you bang it on the side of things and you've, been drinking out of the same water bottle, little tiny pieces of plastic break off from that and you're swallowing it, you're drinking it. We have already found that microplastics are in the human body. Microplastics are getting in people's eyes. They're in people's nasal system. They're showing up in people's autopsies. We've seen it in marine mammals. Marine mammals have tons of microplastics in them. And it wouldn't have crossed my mind that one of the ways that microplastics are getting in our bodies is by inhaling them. I really would have thought drinking them would have been the way. In fact, that's in the last few years, scientists have found microplastics in drinking water. It's not uncommon to find it in drinking water. And I thought that was pretty much the only way that we were consuming it. But evidently, we are inhaling it as well, which allows microplastics to reach human tissues. Microplastics have been tracked in the lower airways for the first time in history. The presence of microplastics in the lower airways increases the long-term microplastic exposure concerns for respiratory health. Microplastics can travel to the deeper lung airways while larger particles cannot. Dang, does that concern anybody? To me, it's bigger concern than gas stoves. But that's about it. Otherwise, it's not a massive concern. Bob is checking in from Orlando at 844-580-WDBO. Hey, Bob, you're on the Joe Kelley Show.
Hey, Joe. Glad to hear your voice again. And
Thank you.
What a turn of events you've gone through.
No kidding.
Hey, this thing with the gas stoves, they could give a rat's you-know-what about, the benzene and all this other nonsense. It's all about government control, because if everything we have to live and survive and to have a normal life is run by electric power, the government controls the electrical grid. And they would just as soon control us like Putin controls Western Europe because of the pipeline. It would be the same damn thing.
Bob, I got to tell you, a 20-something Joe Kelley would have thought you paranoid. I no longer think that anymore, and I think you're onto something. I think this is about government control. I don't think it is a mystery that in the same year that Joe Biden, our president, is talking about outlawing gas stoves, that we suddenly have the first of its kind ever study that comes out that says that a gas stove can give you leukemia. I mean, that just seems a little too convenient, doesn't it, Bob?
I'm telling you, like Hunter's sentence, it was very unexpected and convenient.
Yes.
And, it just makes you wonder of all the millions of dollars that family is taking in from all these foreign countries. I connect the dots. I'm sure they do.
Yeah, I don't have a big doubt about whether or not they're on the take from foreign companies. But leave the gas ranges alone. There are enough issues that the federal government can focus on right now without focusing on our gas stovetops.
I believe there was a study done of how many homes in America, percentage-wise, have gas stoves, and I'd be curious if that number has changed, gone up, gone down by a significant margin, and the fact that our life expectancy up until recently has gone up. So, I think there's multiple contributing factors to this, not just benzene.
Yeah, right, benzene. I mean, if benzene is what they're worried about, then, I do believe that candles would be the next to go. And if they're not serious about clearing the air in our houses by getting rid of candles, then why should we think that they're serious about getting rid of the gas range tops?
I'm glad to hear somebody else got some common sense when it comes to talking about this stove ordeal. Yep, if they'd have cared about the health and well-being of Americans, I think a study on the product and everything and the health concerns would have been done before it was released to the public years and years ago. But as always, it's just about making money, and they want to shift from petroleum-based products to this Green New Deal so we can have a new set of billionaires out there.
Yeah, I think the Green New Deal is a big part of that, and I also think control is a big part of that. I think the open mic or the caller that made the comment about how, the government can shut off our electricity with much greater ease than they can shut off our propane or liquid natural gas or, whatever it is. The type of gas that we use for our stovetops, there is no doubt that it is easier for them to shut off the electric grid.
Hey, Joe. Glad you're back. Glad you're feeling better.
Thank you.
I agree with you. Those 5 poor souls are dead.
Yeah.
Probably an implosion. They've been dead since Sunday.
Yeah.
Martha Stewart, she's hot.
Definitely.
And the Biden family, I've never had one family who made me lose so much trust in our government. They're as corrupt as can be. Everything that comes out of their mouth is a lie. They're after our stove ovens, too.
Yeah, no doubt. And, Martha Stewart just is absolutely rocking. 81-year-old. She looks amazing, no doubt.
I think with everybody wanting to ban everything, why don't we just ban everybody who wants to ban everything? The world would be better.
Yeah, ban the banners. I like ban the banners.
Hey, Joe, so all the garbage trucks and the recycle trucks in Orange County and the city of Orlando run off of natural gas now. So I'm not feeling well. Should I call Morgan & Morgan? Am I breathing the benzene out of the exhaust? I think I am. Help me out, dude.
So honestly, natural gas has an absolutely clean tailpipe. That is a completely clean tailpipe coming out of natural gas when it burns. So there is no benzene. There is no anything. There are no toxic chemicals that come out of liquid natural gas. None. So that would be one instance where you'd be wrong. Liquid natural gas is the future, not the past.
100%. The garden hose water, it just seemed to have more minerals in it.
It did. It was the Gatorade of yesteryears, the garden hose water. I remember you'd have to wait for the water to clear through for 2 reasons. 1, to get the hot water out of the hose, and 2, because invariably there were going to be spiders inside the hose.
Spiders,
right?
lizards.
Right.
I was just going to say
so
that.
So you'd have to let the hose run for for a moment to get the hot water out and to get the spiders out. But then as soon as the spiders were out of the hose, My brother and I, we were sitting there wearing, shorts, no shirt, barefoot, and we're drinking out of the hose, and we're out of breath, and then we're just running back to doing whatever it was we were doing again.
And we had to be home when the street lights came on. That was it.
That was it. Drink out of the garden hose if you wish, and be home before the street lights turn on. That was the only rules we had as kids growing up, which explains why we are so screwed up. Man. Woo! I'm Joe Kelley, 844-580-WDBO, or hit me up in the open mic in the WDBO app.
The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO. Now, the three big things you need to know.
Three. Baseball in daylight is on tap for tonight in Fairbanks, Alaska. The 118th edition of the Midnight Sun Game is scheduled for 10 p.m. Alaska time without the use of lights thanks to the summer solstice. The first game was played back in 1906, and the Baseball Hall of Fame ranks the event among its top 10 must-see games. Two. A gas explosion in Paris has left multiple people injured and damaged buildings. France's nation BFM TV network reported at least 16 people were hurt in the blast, with 7 in critical condition. The explosion happened in the city's busy Latin Quarter near the Paris American Academic Design School. One. 3 vessels have joined the search for the missing submersible used to explore the Titanic. The U.S. Coast Guard says one of the vessels has the ability to detect and image objects on the sea floor. It's believed the submersible has about 24 hours of oxygen left for the 5 people on board.
The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO. Talk and discussion on the latest breaking national news.
Crude oil prices continue to fall.
Local news.
You're not going to have Disney have its own government in Central Florida.
And stories that matter to you. Use the open mic in the WDBO app and let your voice be heard on the Joe Kelley Show.
I don't know if you've ever heard the phrase, now we're cooking with gas. Yeah, you've heard that. Laurel, you've heard the phrase, now we're cooking with gas, right?
Yeah, of course.
So that was actually an advertising campaign. That was written back in the, I want to say 1970s, but that was part of an advertising campaign to help sell gas, home gas-powered appliances, like home, not just home, ranges and ovens, but home heaters and other home systems that could be done with gas. And the gas is a petroleum product. I mean, the gas that you're bringing into your house and cooking with is a petroleum product, and it does have byproducts from that petroleum product, and it does. I don't for a minute deny that it has benzene in the byproduct, but whether or not that is enough benzene to cause people to get cancer, to me, would be the bigger question there.
I don't think there's enough bleeps in the censor button to tell Gordon Ramsay not to use a gas stove.
Yeah, I can't see professional cooks, Gordon Ramsay in particular.
I'm surprised all the cancer wards aren't full of cooks from kitchens with gas stoves.
Right. That's the thing. If we thought that gas stoves were really that dangerous, wouldn't we see a whole lot more chefs and cooks that find themselves in the hospital with leukemia and other blood cancers?
Hey, Joe Kelley, are you filling in for Laurel Lee? Just checking. On a scale of 1 to 10, how concerned am I about microplastics? If it hurts animals, I'm concerned at 11. If it hurts human beings, you know what? We friggin' deserve it.
Oh, come on now. We're better than that. I'm concerned about microplastics. I do have a concern about them, and particularly as we see that they show up. I mean, dentists have found that they're finding microplastics under people's gums because as they brush their teeth, there once was, used to be a lot of our toothpastes contained microplastics, and a lot of different skin lotions and mouthwashes and stuff like that would contain microplastics. They did it on purpose, thinking that, that's a great way to exfoliate the skin. Let's put microplastics in it. Now we realize that microplastics are bad, and we shouldn't use microplastics.
The Surgeon General just issued a warning.
Yeah?
Breathing could be dangerous to your health.
Indeed it can. We are a young species. We're very young. We're very new at this whole living thing. And one of these days, we'll get better at it. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight. The third hour of Sean Hannity is coming up next.